CD Projekt RED returned to Twitch with their second episode of Night City Wire. Lethal Lightning and I did stream the show, so I didn't miss it this time, but here's a recap in case you missed it. Host Holly Bennett returned to once again spin Lethal Lightning's head around.
Yeah, Rex.
And just like in episode 1, laid out the sequence of events, setting expectations for what we'd be seeing. The first segment was a quick overview of the 3 character backstory choices, where we see how the beginning of the game will change if you pick Street Kid, Nomad, or Corpo for your origin. The Street Kid begins in the Night City underworld, with a tough upbringing giving your character a good sense of how things like the gangs in the city function. The Nomad starts you in the Badlands and sees your character navigating the culture of the outskirts of the city, trying to make your way back in as a former member of a Nomad gang called a clan. The Corpo seems like the most subdued opening, beginning you in the boardrooms and offices of the Arasaka Corporation, where your V has risen to a high status. Holly then talks to quest design coordinator Philip Weber about how this initial choice will change not just the beginning of the game, but several choices and conversations you have throughout the rest of the game. The example shown was in how you interact with a corporate official who is hiring you to steal a robot from a specific gang called the Maelstrom. The Corpo will understand this official in a deeper way, giving them dialogue options which represent the Corpo's ability to read between the lines and call her out, because that player would know her game and how she works. The Nomads have some inside knowledge of how the Maelstrom works, so that player would be able to offer insight on how the Maelstrom were able to acquire the target robot in the first place. Finally, a player who chooses the Street Kid would not have either advantage in this initial conversation, but their knowledge of drug culture might allow them to relate to a Maelstrom member who offers the player a drug, giving that player an advantage later in the quest. It's awesome to see that the origin choice is not as simple as being an alternate opening few hours, but will have a ripple effect on the rest of your playthrough. This will hopefully allow for a lot of replayability, as your character class, as far as which weapons and abilities you choose to focus on, can be developed independent of your origin. The middle segment of Night City Wire Episode 2 was probably the weakest, as it focused on the music in the game, or more specifically, how Refused is standing in for the band Samurai. We got to see some shots of Keanu Reeves and how Dennis Lyxzén is approaching being the vocal stand-in for Keanu Reeves' Johnny Silverhand character. Sadly, it didn't give us much insight into the game and would only be interesting to fans of the Swedish punk band rather than all potential Cyberpunk players, and mostly boiled down to, it was fun for us to pretend to be a metal punk band from the future. Thankfully, this episode ended with what I feel is the strongest content we've seen from Night City Wire so far, with a deep dive into the weapon types available in the game. They start with a quick sizzle reel which goes over the 3 gun types, melee weapons, and cyberware weapons, which are body augmentations that can function as either ranged or melee weapons. Pavel Kapala then takes us on a deep dive into the 3 gun types, and this is where my cyborg eyes lit up like a Terminator coming back online. The power weapons seemed incredibly fun as they allow you to ricochet projectiles off surfaces to bounce bullets around like your revolver Ocelot. Tech weapons are high-powered railguns which shoot directly through cover, and smart weapons function like Titanfall's Smart Pistol, giving you a large box reticle, letting you paint targets which your projectiles will track, even around cover. The smart weapons seem to me like an interesting option for players of RPGs who may not be incredible at first-person shooters but want to play Cyberpunk anyway. Not requiring pinpoint accuracy will surely make the game more accessible to a wide group of players. Pavel gives us a quick explanation of how weapons are acquired, saying that standard weapons can be purchased at shops, but legendary weapons need to be found, given, or stolen. An interesting scenario he gave was that if you meet a character during the story that you like, but who also has a really cool weapon, it's up to the player to choose to spare the character or kill them and take the weapon. He then talked about weapon attachments and modifications, which look like they're going to add a lot of depth to the gunplay, adding not only different sights and barrels, but statistics and ammo types which have different effects in combat. All I know is there seem to be a lot of different shotgun types, and like my man Hicks always says,
I'd like to keep this handy for close encounters.
Holly wrapped up by showing a slick art book from Dark Horse, and a final cutaway showed a really slick Trauma Team statue. X-Ray Girl, put that on my Christmas list, I love you. That's it for episode 2, but if you'd like to see me and Holly Bennett's Australian husband break down the whole show in real time, there's a link to our live stream in the description.